The hand of the Lord was on me, and he brought me out by the Spirit of the Lord, and set me in the middle of a valley, and it was full of bones.
Imagine watching a man stand in the middle of a massive desert graveyard, following God's command to speak to a valley of completely dead bones, and then watching them all stand up. Welcome to the book of Ezekiel. It is one of the most intense, visually stunning, and bizarre stories in the entire Bible. Ezekiel is a priest dragged 800 miles from his home, forced to live as a captive in the dusty desert of Babylon. But God is about to rip the sky open with mind-bending miracles, glowing angelic wheels of fire, and terrifying creatures with 4 faces. Today, we are going to break down this complex biblical epic in a simple, fun way. You will see extreme street performances, like baking bread over cow dung, shaving his head with an iron sword, and sleeping in the dirt for over a year. You will see a massive execution, a terrifying enemy army, and the absolute craziest miracle of all, the dead coming back to life. Stay with us till the end to witness the shocking moment when the darkest, most broken pieces of a destroyed nation are perfectly rebuilt into something brand new. If these stories connect with you, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. It really helps us bring more of these biblical epics to life. Now, let's begin. Welcome to the Kebar River in Babylon. It is hot, sticky, and the absolute last place on earth Ezekiel wants to be. Ezekiel is an Israelite, a holy priest who was supposed to spend his entire life serving God inside the beautiful, golden temple back in his hometown of Jerusalem. 5 years ago, the Babylonian Empire invaded his country. But they didn't destroy Jerusalem. Instead, they dragged 10,000 of the smartest Israelites away in bronze chains as hostages to keep the city in line. Now, Ezekiel and his people are stuck building mud brick houses in a foreign desert, 800 miles away from home.
We are holy priests, Ezekiel. We shouldn't be building mud huts for pagans.
But I heard the rumors. The puppet king back in Jerusalem is tired of paying taxes to Babylon. He is making a secret deal to hire the Egyptian army.
Egypt will fight Babylon, and we are finally going home.
Egypt cannot save us. The king is making a massive mistake.
What are you talking about? It is our only chance.
If our king rebels, the Babylonian Empire will not just take hostages this time. They will march their unstoppable army back and burn our beloved city to the ground.
The exiles are terrified of the Babylonian army, but they are looking in the completely wrong direction. While they argue about earthly empires, something far more powerful is arriving.
Do you feel that? The air just dropped 10 degrees.
A towering, impossibly thick wall of dark thunderheads is violently speeding down from the north.
Is it an army? Take cover!
It is absolutely not just a storm. Deep inside the rolling black clouds, a terrifying flash of pure, white-hot light begins to pulse, and it is heading directly for Ezekiel. The cynical elder completely breaks down in terror, scrambling away into the mud brick houses. Ezekiel is left completely alone on the riverbank. The wind roars. As the clouds part, Ezekiel shields his eyes from a blinding halo of light. At the center, something glows white-hot, like solid metal.
What? What is that?
4 spectacular creatures drop from the storm, hovering above the river. Each has 4 glowing wings and 4 distinct faces: a man, a lion, an ox, and an eagle. The creatures move with lightning speed, but they are not alone. Beside each of them hovers a colossal, spinning wheel within a wheel, sparkling like precious topaz. The tall rims of the glowing wheels are completely covered in living, shifting eyes. They see everything. Above the wheels stretches an immense crystal dome, and resting high above that is a spectacular throne carved from deep, shimmering blue sapphire. Seated on the throne is a figure shaped like a human, radiating absolute, blinding glory, surrounded by a brilliant rainbow.
This was the appearance of the likeness of the glory of the Lord. When I saw it, I fell face down, and I heard the voice of one speaking.
Ezekiel presses his face into the wet mud. The sheer, overwhelming majesty of the Creator has literally parked in his backyard in a dirty exile camp.
Son of man, stand up on your feet and I will speak to you.
A powerful, invisible force surges through Ezekiel, physically lifting the terrified priest out of the mud. Ezekiel's knees are shaking, but his eyes lock onto the sapphire throne.
I am sending you to your own people. The nation of Israel has rebelled against me. They are stubborn, but do not be afraid, even when you live among scorpions. You must speak my words to them, whether they listen or not.
The Creator is making Ezekiel a watchman, but he isn't handing him a fancy royal decree to preach to the nations. He is commanding Ezekiel to warn his own stubborn neighbors, and he is handing him something much stranger to do it. Ezekiel stares. The scroll is densely covered in heavy, dark ink. It is a record of pure devastation, filled with words of lament, mourning, and woe for Jerusalem.
Son of man, eat what is before you. Eat this scroll. Then go and speak to the people of Israel.
Son of man. That specific title will echo 93 times across Ezekiel's life. It is a constant, humbling reminder. God is the infinite creator on the sapphire throne, and Ezekiel is simply a fragile, mortal man made of dust. Yet, this mortal man is being asked to carry a divine burden. God isn't giving him a bizarre physical meal. This is a profound prophetic vision. A watchman cannot simply memorize a warning to repeat it later. He must completely absorb it. He must internalize the bitter truth of God's judgment until it becomes a part of his very being. Ezekiel reaches out, his fingers trembling. He expects it to taste like ash and death. But as he consumes the terrifying message, his eyes suddenly open in pure shock.
So I ate it, and it tasted as sweet as honey in my mouth.
The scroll was filled with death, but it tasted sweet. Why? Because the heavy words were the pure, righteous truth of the Creator. If you agree, type the ultimate faith declaration down below. I trust God's word. To a man who truly loves God, even the hardest discipline is sweeter than the lies of a corrupt world. Suddenly, the storm pulls back. The brilliant wheels of fire shoot straight up into the clouds. The sky snaps back to normal. Ezekiel has his mission, and God is about to turn him into the strangest street performer in Babylon. For 7 days, Ezekiel sits in absolute silence, overwhelmed by his vision. Then, God gives him a strange command. He tells Ezekiel to go out into the dusty street and build a visual warning.
And now, Son of Man, take a large clay brick and set it down in front of you. Then draw a map of the city of Jerusalem on it.
Ezekiel drops to his knees and slaps wet clay into a brick.
Now, build dirt, siege ramps, and place tiny battering rams all around it.
Ezekiel starts piling up real dirt to build miniature enemy attack camps. He uses wet clay to sculpt a highly detailed miniature battlefield.
Are we playing with mud now, priest? We are waiting for news that the Egyptian army has saved Jerusalem, not watching children's games.
It is not a game. This brick is Jerusalem.
The elders roll their eyes. They still believe Jerusalem is perfectly safe. But then, Ezekiel takes a heavy iron pan and stabs it into the dirt between himself and the tiny city.
What are you doing with the pan?
It is a barrier. God has placed an iron wall between himself and the city because of our sins.
He will not protect it. The Babylonian army is coming.
The elders still refuse to listen. Because they are too stubborn to hear the truth, God does something drastic. He restricts Ezekiel's voice. If they will not listen to his words, God will force them to watch his actions.
I will make your tongue stick to the roof of your mouth, so that you will be silent and unable to rebuke them, for they are a rebellious people.
Ezekiel's own body becomes a living message. God commands him to show exactly how bad the coming siege will be. Ezekiel pours tiny amounts of wheat, barley, beans, and lentils into a single jar. When an enemy army surrounds a city, the food supply is cut off. The people inside will have to scrape together random crumbs just to survive. But God commands him to do something even more shocking. He tells Ezekiel to bake this desperate bread over a fire fueled by dried cow dung. During a real siege, firewood runs out and starving people are forced to cook with animal waste. It is disgusting, and it is strictly forbidden for a holy priest to touch it.
You are defiling yourself. Have you lost your mind?
Ezekiel ignores the mockery. Following God's exact instructions, he lies down in the dirt on his left side, staring directly at the iron pan. And he refuses to get up. The clock has officially started ticking. Days turn into weeks, and weeks turn into months. The whole camp watches as Ezekiel refuses to move from his spot in the street. He stays locked in the exact same position, baking his survival bread and staring at the tiny mud city. Time moves painfully slow in the dirt.
"390 days! This is madness, Ezekiel! Your arm is burning in the sun! Just get up!"
God gave Ezekiel a terrifying calendar. Hundreds of years before Ezekiel was born, their nation had split in a civil war. The northern half, called Israel, turned their backs on God and worshipped fake idols for exactly 390 years. So, God made Ezekiel lie on his left side for 390 days. One day for every year of their rebellion.
God commanded me, "Bear their sin for the number of days you lie on your side."
Bear their sin? The north was destroyed years ago. We are from the southern kingdom. We are from Judah. Their punishment has nothing to do with us. You are right. The north was destroyed. But our southern kingdom watched them fall.
And then we did the exact same bad things for 40 years.
Now the bill is due. Now I carry the guilt of the south. Judah, 40 more days on my right side.
The exact math of the punishment proves one terrifying truth. God's justice is precise, and the clock is ticking down to 0. The 430 days of punishment in the dirt are finally over. Ezekiel stands up, his muscles stiff, his clothes dusty. He walks calmly into his house and returns holding something heavy, sharp, and incredibly dangerous. A massive iron sword.
Ezekiel, drop it! You are a priest, not a soldier! What are you doing?
The camp gasps in shock. With aggressive, choppy strokes, he slices off his long hair and his thick beard. According to God's strict laws, holy priests were absolutely forbidden from shaving their heads. It was considered an unholy, pagan mourning ritual. But Ezekiel isn't just breaking the rules. He is using a ritually unclean weapon of death to do it.
God commanded me to use a sword, because a sword is exactly what is coming for our families.
Ezekiel gathers every single strand of his freshly cut hair. He brings out a set of weighing scales and carefully divides the hair into 3 exact, equal piles. God is showing them that this coming slaughter isn't a random accident. It is a perfectly measured judgment.
This first pile is the people trapped inside the city walls. They will burn and starve.
He takes the second pile of hair, scatters it in the dirt surrounding the tiny mud city, and raises the heavy iron sword.
A third of your people will die of the plague or perish by famine inside you.
A third will fall by the sword outside your walls.
Ezekiel picks up the final, third pile of hair. He holds it high above his head and opens his hand. A strong gust of wind sweeps through the camp, instantly scattering it aggressively into the sky.
The last pile are the survivors, scattered into the wind, dragged away as prisoners to foreign lands, just like us.
You are a liar! Babylon is not coming back to slaughter our families. And even if they did, they could never breach the walls!
100 years ago, God wiped out an entire army just to protect his temple. He will never let his own house burn, which means our families are perfectly safe.
The stubborn exiles refuse to believe their families are in danger. Because of their history, they think God is obligated to protect them, making the city untouchable. But God is about to pull back the invisible curtain and show Ezekiel exactly why that shield is about to drop. Weeks later, Ezekiel is sitting inside his small house. Several of the proud, stubborn elders of the exile camp are sitting on the floor in front of him. They are still angrily arguing that their families back in Jerusalem are perfectly safe, simply because God's glorious temple is standing right in the middle of the city. They believe the temple is an unbreakable shield. So, God decides to pull back the invisible curtain and show Ezekiel exactly why that shield is about to drop. Right there in the middle of the room, Ezekiel goes completely rigid.
Now what? Is he doing another trick? Ezekiel, look at me.
To the elders, Ezekiel hasn't moved an inch. But in Ezekiel's mind, a terrifying hand from heaven reaches down and grabs him by the hair. He is standing in the most sacred, holy ground on the entire planet. But something is horribly wrong. Right there in the main courtyard, a massive, offensive idol of a false god has been set up to rival the Creator.
Son of man, do you see what they are doing? the utterly detestable things the Israelites are doing here, things that will drive me far from my sanctuary.
God points to a solid stone wall nearby and commands the priest to dig through it. Ezekiel pulls a loose stone free, revealing a dark, hidden doorway. Standing in the dark are 70 of the most powerful, respected leaders in Jerusalem. Instead of guiding the nation to follow God, they are swinging heavy metal censers, filling the room with the smoke of expensive incense. In the ancient world, burning incense was the highest, most sacred form of worship. But these leaders are secretly offering it to creepy bugs painted on a basement wall.
Son of man, have you seen what the elders of Israel are doing in the darkness, each at the shrine of his own idol?
The elders back in Babylon are completely wrong. The leaders of Jerusalem are committing absolute spiritual treason inside God's own house. And God has finally had enough. His protective presence is packing its bags, and it is about to leave the city completely. Ezekiel is still standing in the temple courtyard. Suddenly, God's voice booms like thunder, commanding the executioners of the city to step forward. Out of the shadows of the northern gate, 6 terrifying men appear, holding heavy, deadly, smashing weapons. Ezekiel realizes he is watching God officially authorize the slaughter of his hometown. These 6 executioners represent the real, physical Babylonian army that is about to wipe out the city. But right before the executioners are released, a 7th figure steps forward. He is not a soldier. He is dressed in pure white linen, carrying a writer's ink kit at his side. God turns directly to this man.
Go throughout the city of Jerusalem and put a mark on the foreheads of those who grieve and lament over all the detestable things that are done in it.
The executioners are ordered to destroy the corrupt city, but they are strictly forbidden from touching anyone with the mark. This is a spiritual guarantee. When the real physical army finally invades, God knows exactly who the innocent believers are, and He will make sure they survive. God is rescuing the innocent people, but He is officially abandoning the physical building. Ezekiel looks back up at the deepest, most sacred room of the Golden Temple, and his heart sinks. Because the Creator is packing his bags. Ezekiel watches from the courtyard. The blinding, majestic light of the Creator, the exact same brilliant glory that appeared over the muddy riverbank in Babylon, lifts up from the deepest, most sacred room of the temple. God is leaving. But before he goes, he shows Ezekiel 2 final, sickening insults. At the north gate, women are weeping, but not for God. They are worshipping a fake pagan idol. Worse, in the inner court, 25 of Israel's own priests have literally turned their backs to God's temple. They are facing east, bowing down to worship the sun. Because they have completely rejected him, the Creator will not stay in a house that no longer wants him. The glowing cloud of light rises and hovers over the eastern gate. God is officially leaving the temple, but the corrupt priests in the courtyard below don't even notice. No one stops him. No one asks him to stay.
The glory of the Lord went up from within the city and stopped above the mountain east of it.
With a final rush of wind, the brilliant light sweeps over the city walls and disappears over the Mount of Olives. Without God's presence, the temple is no longer a holy fortress. It is just an empty building made of rocks and gold. The invisible shield is officially gone. The proud, stubborn elders are still sitting right in front of him. They have no idea what just happened in the spiritual world.
Ezekiel? What is it? Did God give you a message?
The glory is gone. He left the city. The temple is completely empty.
The elders roll their eyes and shake their heads, completely rejecting the warning. They stand up, brush the dirt off their robes, and walk out of the house, confident that Jerusalem is still safe. But Ezekiel knows the terrifying truth. The Babylonians are coming, and there is nothing left to stop them. The terrifying vision of the empty temple haunted Ezekiel. But the stubborn exiles still couldn't understand why the Creator would just walk away from his own house.
He is God, Ezekiel. If the Babylonians are at the gates, why doesn't he just stay and use his power to fight the army?
Because we are the ones who abandoned him. Listen, once there was a king who found an abandoned baby crying in the dirt. No one wanted her. But the king washed her, raised her, and gave her a crown. You became very beautiful and rose to be a queen. Your fame spread among the nations on account of your beauty.
Ezekiel explains that this is a parable. The king is God, and the abandoned baby is their city, Jerusalem. God gave her everything. But when the city grew up, she took God's beautiful gifts, melted them into fake statues, and gave her heart to his enemies. Then, they did the unthinkable.
She took the sons and daughters the king gave her, and she sacrificed them. She burned her own children alive in fires built to a fake god.
This part of the story was not a metaphor. The people of Jerusalem actually burned their own children alive in pagan rituals.
God didn't lose a war. The queen forgot who gave her the crown. She completely destroyed the relationship, leaving the king no choice but to let her enemies conquer her.
In the 9th year of their captivity, a terrifying day arrives. God speaks to Ezekiel with a crushing message. He tells the priest to write down today's exact date, because today is the day the Babylonian king has finally surrounded Jerusalem. The physical siege has officially begun. But God also delivers a devastating personal blow. To force the exiles to understand the horrific reality of what is happening 800 miles away, Ezekiel is going to become a living, breathing metaphor one last time.
With one blow I am about to take away from you the delight of your eyes. Yet do not lament or weep or shed any tears. Groan quietly. Do not mourn for the dead.
It is the hardest, most agonizing command God ever gives him. That very evening, Ezekiel's wife, the absolute delight of his eyes, suddenly dies. In the ancient world, mourning a death was a massive, highly public event. People would violently tear their clothes, throw ashes on their heads, and weep loudly in the streets. The exiles gather at Ezekiel's door to mourn with him.
Ezekiel, your wife is gone. Why are you not weeping?
Because this is exactly what is happening to our home. Jerusalem is surrounded today. When the city finally falls, you will not get to cry like innocent victims. You spent years rebelling and ignoring God's warnings. When the destruction comes, you will realize you brought it on yourselves, and your guilt will leave you completely speechless. You will just waste away in silence. My silence today is a sign. What I am doing right now is exactly what you will do when the city falls.
Ezekiel's silent, crushing grief is a living mirror. Because the exiles are 800 miles away in Babylon, they have no physical way to know the war has actually started. They just think Ezekiel is crazy. But God gave Ezekiel the exact date for a reason. Now, all they can do is wait in the desert until a physical survivor manages to cross the wasteland. When that refugee finally arrives and confirms the exact date the siege began, the exiles will realize the watchman was telling the terrifying truth the whole time. Time moves painfully slow in the desert. The exiles by the Kebar River are exhausted. They have been listening to rumors from passing trade caravans, but no one has any solid news from the west. Back in Jerusalem, the terrifying siege Ezekiel acted out in the dirt lasted for a brutal year and a half. After the city finally fell, it took several more months for anyone to survive the dangerous 800-mile trek across the desert to Babylon. Finally, on a blindingly hot afternoon in the 12th year of their exile, a single, exhausted figure stumbles over the sand dunes. Ezekiel steps out of his doorway, his heart sinking. He already knows who this man is. He has been waiting for him.
Get some water! He's barely breathing! Where did you come from?
I came all the way from Jerusalem.
The entire camp goes completely, terrifyingly silent. The fugitive looks up, his face covered in dirt, tears streaming down his cheeks. He doesn't give a long speech. He just says 4 agonizing words.
The city has fallen.
A collective, piercing wail of grief erupts from the camp. People fall to their knees, ripping their clothes and throwing handfuls of dust into the air. The unthinkable has actually happened. The massive stone walls were crushed. The beautiful golden temple was burned to the ground. For the exiles, this is not just losing a war. It is the absolute, total loss of their national identity. They are officially homeless, defeated, and broken. They are a valley of completely dry, hopeless bones. Ezekiel walks slowly through the weeping crowd. For years, God had restricted his voice, only allowing him to speak warnings of doom. But the doom has finally arrived. The punishment is over. So, God completely removes the restriction. The watchman stops in the center of the camp, and for the first time in years, his voice rings out with pure, unrestricted warmth.
The city is gone. The corrupt leaders who lied to you are gone. But the Creator is not finished. He is going to give us something better than a stone building.
What does that even mean, Ezekiel? We have nothing left!
God says, I will give you a new heart and put a new spirit in you. I will remove from you your heart of stone and give you a heart of flesh.
Ezekiel promises them something impossible. Not just a rebuilt city, but a completely new, soft heart that actually wants to follow God. But how can a completely destroyed, dead nation ever find hope again?
No, I curse this day. Why didn't our king stop them? Why didn't the priests protect everyone?
The elder's heartbreak echoes across the weeping camp. The title of shepherd was the official term for kings. They were supposed to protect the citizens like a literal shepherd guards a flock. But Israel's leaders had completely failed, exploiting the weak to make themselves rich. Ezekiel looks at the broken crowd.
Because they were corrupt. God said to those kings,
You have not strengthened the weak or healed the sick, or bound up the injured.
Because human kings failed, God promises to fire the corrupt leaders and take over the job himself.
Instead, God promises, I will place over them one shepherd, my servant David, and he will tend them.
King David had been dead for 400 years, but Ezekiel is delivering a prophetic promise. A future, ultimate king from David's royal bloodline will come. This new leader will be the good shepherd who finally gathers the scattered people. But how can a new king lead a nation that is already dead, completely destroyed, and buried in exile? To prove he can resurrect a dead nation, God hits Ezekiel with his most powerful, mind-bending vision yet. God drops Ezekiel into the middle of a terrifying canyon packed with millions of shattered, dry bones. This is not a literal graveyard. God is giving Ezekiel a massive visual metaphor to take back to the exiles.
Prophesy to these bones. Tell them to hear the word of the Lord.
Ezekiel doesn't hesitate. He opens his mouth and shouts the words of the Creator into the dead silence.
Dry bones, hear the word of the Lord. He will make breath enter you, and you will come to life.
This is a clinical display of divine creation. Thick tendons pull like ropes to connect the joints. Muscle builds aggressively over the reassembled skeletons, and skin seamlessly wraps over the muscle.
They are whole, but they aren't moving.
The valley is packed with perfectly rebuilt bodies, standing shoulder to shoulder. But their eyes are closed. They have no breath in their lungs.
Prophesy to the breath. Say to it, come, breath from the four winds, and breathe into these slain, that they may live.
Ezekiel raises his arms high above his head and roars the command.
Come from the four winds. Breathe into them.
The entire army suddenly gasps for air at the exact same second. Millions of eyes snap open, filled with vibrant life. The impossible army stands tall, completely restored. God turns to Ezekiel and explains exactly what this means for the camp.
Son of man, these bones are the people of Israel. They say, our bones are dried up and our hope is gone. We are cut off. Therefore prophesy and say to them, this is what the sovereign Lord says, my people, I am going to open your graves and bring you up from them.
The exiles felt like their nation was a corpse rotting in a Babylonian graveyard. But God gave Ezekiel this vision to prove a factual point. God can physically revive a dead nation. He promises to pull them out of their exiled graves and walk them back to the land of Israel. Ezekiel shared these visions with the camp, completely shifting their focus from the ashes of Jerusalem to an incredible future. In his final vision, God brings Ezekiel to the top of a massive mountain to show him a brand new temple. But this temple isn't just a building for religious rituals. Instead, a miraculous, life-giving river of pure water bubbles up from beneath its doors, flowing out into the dry desert. An angelic guide with a glowing measuring line leads Ezekiel into the water. At first, it only reaches his ankles. The angel measures further down the river, and Ezekiel follows. Now, the bright, splashing water reaches his knees. They go further still, and the water rises to Ezekiel's waist. He laughs as the current playfully pushes against him. Finally, the angel measures one last time, and it becomes a massive, roaring river, completely too deep to cross. Ezekiel has to swim. He watches this unstoppable river flow east, straight down into the barren valley of the Dead Sea. The point of this is profound. The Dead Sea is the most toxic, salty body of water on Earth. Absolutely nothing can live there. But the moment this miraculous river hits the toxic water, a massive miracle happens. It instantly turns fresh.
The water, it heals everything it touches.
This river is a symbol of God's presence. In the past, the people thought God's presence was trapped inside a physical building. But this vision shows God's life-giving presence flowing out into the world, healing the most toxic, dead places on earth. This is the true moral of the book of Ezekiel. The story starts with God leaving a corrupt temple to meet his broken people in a dirty mud camp. It proves that God is not confined to a building. He judges corruption strictly, but his ultimate goal is always restoration. The dry bones and the river prove one clear lesson. No matter how far a nation falls or how dead a situation seems, the Creator has the power to breathe life back into the dirt. Congratulations on reaching the end of the story. You have earned the Living Temple badge. Comment Living Temple down below to claim your badge.
Hi guys, these videos take many hours of hard work. If you could, please like the video and subscribe. Also, we want to see which countries our videos reach. If you could, please comment which country you're watching from. It'll truly help us. See you in the next video.